Okay, so let's start with the sun. So we already know that the sun is, I don't know, the sun is a ball of gas. It's a star. Okay, and just like any other star in the universe, stars are actually characterized. One way to characterize them is by using the Hertzsprung-Russell diagram or the HR diagram. Okay, so what does an HR diagram look like? So the HR diagram is a plot of the luminosity, or sometimes it's plotted against the absolute magnitude. So this is luminosity and this is magnitude. Uh, and then it is plotted against the color as well as which is equivalent to the temperature. So the temperature of the star, okay, determines the spectral class. So it can be in terms of O, B, A, F, G, K, M, okay, which corresponds to certain ranges of temperature. And correspondingly, it can be used to identify the blue-violet color index of the star. So if you're going to plot all observable stars in this HR diagram, you will come up with this kind of graph. So here you can see several groups of dots. So each dot corresponds to one star that has been observed. So this group are called the stars that belong to this group are considered to be white dwarfs. And then this group are supergiants, yung 1A, 1B. Two are bright giants. So the stars that belong to this line, or that are close to this line, are called bright giants. And then you have your giants. That's group 3. Group 4 are subgiants. And then you have your main sequence. So most of the stars are actually belong to this main sequence. Okay. So for example, the sun is actually a main sequence star. So the sun is actually found in one of these dots in this main sequence. So that's 5, group 5. So that's 5. Um, in fact, the sun is actually a G2V type star. So what does it mean? It means that it belongs to the main sequence, which is group B, and then the spectral class is G2. Okay, so MKG. So saan siya ngayon dito? Uh, so if we're going to draw a line, a vertical line that passes through that G2 uh, parameter, it will be somewhere here. Okay, so all the stars that are near this line are all G2 stars. But it can be a G2 3 star if it is found here. It can be G1b star if it is found here, etc. It can be a white dwarf, but still G2 if it is found here. Okay. If we are actually going to calculate the absolute magnitude of of the sun, the absolute magnitude is 4.83. Okay, so somewhere here, it should be somewhere. Therefore, the sun's absolute magnitude is somewhere here. So if we're going to draw a horizontal line passing through the value of 4.3 sa absolute magnitude, and that is equivalent to uh, luminosity of 1, where the luminosity of the sun is 1, and then the rest are relative luminosities. Those are luminosities relative to the sun. So if you're going to draw that horizontal line, it will be somewhere here. So the cross section of these two lines is where we can actually find where the sun is in this HR diagram relative to the other stars. So in short, um, our sun is fairly regular. Okay, the sun is a very regular star. That's why, most astronomers actually don't really bother looking at the sun except for those times na very active ang sun. But if for most cases they're not really, uh they're not really uh fan of, looking at the sun as a star. Kasi it's very ano eh, it's very normal kumbaga. It's belongs to this group of ano. So and there are a lot of stars that are actually G2Bs. So hindi siya ganon ka-unique except for the fact that it is the one that is closest to the sun. Okay? It is the one that is closest to the earth. And it's the main source of energy which controls all the physical phenomenon in the space environment. So most of the phenomenon related to space weather, space science, and we say space science, that is the science between the space between the sun and the earth. Most of the phenomenon that happens in that region are controlled by the sun, with some little aspects of other uh, influences, extra galactic influences or uh, extra planetary influences. Okay, but most of it that happen in the space environment can be actually traced back to the sun. What happens to the sun will have a direct effect on what's happening on the Earth. Okay, so to give you some idea, so again, because this is the closest star that we have, so it's about 1.4496 times 10 to the 8 kilometers, which is equivalent to about 215 solar radii. So if you're going to fit suns between the sun and the earth, you can fit actually about 100 suns between the sun and the earth. Okay, because of this distance, you know already that the light coming from the sun travels at about 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second. That means the light coming from the star, the light coming from the star, from the sun, will travel about 8 light minutes. It will travel about 8 minutes with a few seconds change. No? So the radius of the sun is very big. It's about 695,700 kilometers, which is about 109 times bigger than the radius of the Earth. Okay, so that means you can actually fit 195 Earths to fit the radius of the sun. Okay, so from one end to one end, you can actually fit about 100 Earths between those points. The mass of the Earth is the mass of the sun, which is it can also be used as a solar mass units, which is equivalent to 1.989 or about 2 times 10 to the 30 kilograms, which is about 330,000 times the mass of the Earth. Okay, so that's how big the sun is. And if you're going to look at the sun through a telescope, through a solar telescope using certain filters, it would look like this. So this is actually the H alpha emissions. You see H alpha, that's the, if you're going to remember, no, it's yung sa ating atomic spectra, right? You remember yung atomic spectra natin? So one of those spectral lines, hydrogen line, which is equivalent, which is directly related to the Balmer series. The red line is actually the H alpha line. So that's the emissions of alpha particles, which are no, that's yeah, I think that, yeah, that's the Balmer series, no. So that's the emission of electrons from the fourth energy level to the third energy level. Kung doon nagkakamali. Or fifth energy level, 5, 4, 3, 2. Yeah, from the fifth energy level to the second energy level, that emission is equivalent to that H alpha emission, that hydrogen atom emissions. So what happened here is yung telescope nilagyan ng filter at 656 nanometers or 6,562. We're going to zoom in closely here. So that's 6,562 angstroms or 656.28 nanometer. Okay, so this is obtained from the Learmont Observatory in Australia yesterday at 7 UT. So this is about 7 UT plus 8. So just to compute for the local time, no, 7 UT. So ang difference between with our latitude is about 8 hours difference. So that's so 8. So that's 15 local time, 15 hours local time. So that's about 3:30. Yes, about 3:30 p.m. This is the image of the sun. Okay, using this filter, yung 656 angstrom. This is red light. Okay, so if you're going to see the sun on the ground, it would look something like this. But we can also observe the sun from space using several satellites, one of which is what we call the Solar Dynamics Observatory. One of the product of that Solar Dynamics Observatory is a solar disks that in the white continuum. Okay, so that means we're looking at the whole spectrum of the visible wavelengths of visible spectrum. So the sun would look like, of course, this is colorized to yellow orange. Okay, but the point is, from here we can actually see. Can zoom in here again, so we can see the sunspots here. Okay, from a telescope, you can see the sunspots here. It would look something like that. But in the continuum range, outside the sun, outside the Earth's atmosphere, it would look like this. So this is one group of sunspots. If you can see it here, there's another group here. You can correspond it with this one. Tapos ito din. This is an emerging sunspot group, which we can actually see here. Okay, so this is a continuum from the SDO satellite. Okay. Now, as you already know, the sun actually emits other kinds of wavelengths. Okay, aside from the visible range, it also emits UV and even extreme UV. So and even radio waves. So in terms of extreme UV, they may look like this. So this is the sun if you're going to see them with an X-ray vision, extreme X-ray vision. Yeah, extreme X-ray vision at different wavelengths. Okay. Sige. So this is the sun. If the wavelength is 193 angstrom. So this is extreme UV. That's about 19.3 nanometer. This is another extreme UV, a little bit longer. It's about 30.4 nanometers or 304 angstroms. So you will notice here at different wavelengths, even if it's the same extreme UV, the sun will look different. And because of this, we could actually observe the sun and in different aspects using different wavelengths. And that is what this satellite does. So this is SDO. If you're going to look at my website, yung makalalad@weebly.com, I put up a tab there, an additional tab wherein you can actually observe these things in near real time. So again, this is obtained yesterday. That's September 20, around 3 to 3:30 p.m. local time. Now, today it would look like this. So you will notice now from behind yesterday, because the sun is rotating, so you can see that the features of the sun, for example, the sunspot actually move here. Okay, and if you're going to notice as well that the sunspot group And this sunspot group actually grew like this. Okay, so this is your emerging sunspot group. This sunspot group actually uh, grew as well. Okay. By the way, some additional facts about the sun. So the specific gravity of the sun is 200. Surface gravity, sorry, is about 274 meters per second squared. So that's about 200. That's about 27 times larger than the sun's the Earth's gravitational field at the surface. Okay, so if you're going to weigh X kilograms here, it will feel 27, about 30 times heavier when you are on the surface of the sun. So you will feel heavy there. Okay, so that's why the escape velocity is much larger. The escape velocity at the sun, at the surface of the sun, is 618 kilometers per second. The mean density is 1,400 kilograms per cubic meter. The rotational axis to the ecliptic plane means the ecliptic plane, that's the plane that passes through the equator of the Earth. So relative to that surface, the rotational axis of the sun is about 7.25 degrees. Okay, and it rotates about the axis of the sun about 25 days. So we call that one solar rotation. So for example, if you're going to track this sunspot, and this sunspot is strong enough to survive 25 days. After one solar rotation, you can still see this sunspot around this area as well. Okay? So, ganun siya. Questions po? Wala? Okay, sige. So, let's move on. Let's additional information about the sun, solar uh, elemental composition of the sun. So, about 91% of the sun is made up of hydrogen. About 9% is helium and some traces of other heavier elements such as carbon, oxygen, neon, etc. Okay, so these are actually due to your fusion processes. So much of the fuel actually comes from the hydrogen being converted to helium. And these trace gases, these trace elements are actually produced by fusion of helium and other particles. So I think you already learned that uh, in your I think you learned that in your fusion process no sa nuclear and particle physics class. Tama ba, Lance? Tinaral nyo ba 'yon? Yes, okay, good. Sige. But anyway, so moving on. So this is the basic structure of the sun, and again, most of the elements in the sun is in the form of hydrogen. So this is actually the one that fuels the sun to its core. And so most of the production of the energies are actually coming from the core in the sun, and it is transferred. So that energy is being transferred through the radiation zone and through convection. If you're going to remember your physics class, physics 116, okay, there are three kinds of energy transfer. You have your conduction, convection, and radiation. So energy that is generated from the core is radiated or transferred to the surface of the sun by first radiation and then convection. Okay, which we're going to talk about later. So this is the internal structure of the sun. And then on the surface of the sun, can found several structures like you have your sunspots, you have your prominences, you have your coronal loops, you have your open and closed coronal loops, you have your solar atmosphere, including the photosphere, the chromosphere, and the corona, solar corona. You can actually see granulation cells. These granulation cells and even sunspots are actually generated partly because of the convection zone. So when you see granulations on the surface of the sun, that is actually a proof that convection actually happens underneath it. So you also have your filaments, etc. So we're going to focus ourselves today uh, in the interior of the sun. We start with the core, how energy is generated at the core, and then how that energy is transferred through the radiation zone and the convection zone, and from there we can actually estimate or have a good guess of how density and temperature varies from the core towards the surface of the sun. Okay, using some physics there. Okay, so in terms of relative distances, if RO or RO, let's call this RO, no? If RO is the if RO is the radius of the sun, about 1/4 of the radius of the sun is where your core is. So that's the size of the core. About 3/4, that's the radius of the radiative zone, and then the rest are your convection zone. So you will notice here, no, that the schematic goes like this. So energy is generated from at the core at about 10.5 times 10 to the 7 Kelvin. The density at the center of the sun is about 1.6 times 10 to the 5 kilogram per cubic meter. And then that energy generated is diffused through radiation and convection towards the center of the earth. And then from at the center of the at the sorry at the center at the surface of the sun, energy is generated is transferred through radiation. Okay, to particle radiation, through the solar wind, and through the electromagnetic radiation. Okay. In the next class, in the next class, we're going to talk about the solar surface and the solar atmosphere, including the discussion on the photosphere, the chromosphere, and the corona. Okay. At different layers of the sun, you can actually see the different temperatures. So you will notice here that the temperature at the edge of the chromosphere is about 10 to the 6, which is much hotter than the surface of the sun. And we're going to talk about that later. Okay. So okay. So let's move on. Okay, so let's start with the core and how the sun's energy is generated at the core. I'm sure I'm sure this has been mentioned to you before sa inyong physics, nuclear physics class, if I'm not mistaken. Ito lang, ha? Okay, can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Sige, bubuti naman. Okay, anyway, so this is the sun actually uses thermonuclear uh, reactions. Okay, and it is fueled by fusion reaction by burning hydrogen fuel at temperatures of about 1.5 times 10 to the 7 Kelvin. And it produces helium nuclei. Okay? So it's actually a chain of events. So it starts with two hydrogen nuclei that fuses to produce deuterium nucleus or H2 nucleus with additional positron. So that's electron with a positive charge, positron, and a neutrino. And the difference on the masses between the two hydrogen atoms or two hydrogen nuclei and this product is equivalent to 1.442 mega electron volts. Okay, so this is actually computed using from your nuclear physics class. So saan siya equivalent? Using paano siya na-compute? Lance? from nuclear and particle physics class. Paano siya na-compute, Lance? Kalimutan na?
Kalimutan ko na.
Yeah, that's actually from the new from the rest mass E equals mc squared. Di ba? E equals mc squared. From E equals mc squared, that m multiplied with the square of the speed of light is actually equal to the mass difference between the product and the ingredient, kumbaga, no? Okay, so this is the first step. So by the way, this is schematic, no? This is for a proton, and this is for your deuterium nucleus. So deuterium is actually a hydrogen atom with an extra neutron. Okay, and it also produces a neutrino and a positron. So the next step is that this positron, dito, this deuterium actually reacts. Okay, this actually reacts to uh, another hydrogen. Okay, another proton, kumbaga, another proton. Because remember, these are because the sun's core is so hot that most of the species there are actually in plasma form. Okay, so for example, hydrogen is already stripping of its electrons. So matitira na sa kanya ay yung kanyang proton, kaya kanyang nucleus. So what happens that the next step would be the fusion of this deuterium nuclei with another hydrogen nucleus. Because remember, diba, most of the material the sun is mostly composed of hydrogen. There's a hydrogen and some traces of helium. Okay, so most of this hydrogen are either your usual protons or your deuterium isotopes or deuterium nucleus. So in other words, so the next step is that uh, there is now a fusion between this deuterium nucleus with another hydrogen nucleus. And when they fused, it produces a helium-3 isotope nucleus and a gamma ray. Okay, and this gamma ray is worth about 5.493 mega electron volts. So remember, this is energy as well. Huh? Okay, and then this helium-3 ion actually fuses with another helium-3 ion produced by this same same process. So this is the same process as this process. So the resulting uh, helium-3 nucleus will actually fuse together to produce a 4 helium nucleus and 2 protons and a gamma radiation. And then this process, this fusion process, produces 12.8 mega electron volts. So what does it mean? For the whole process, remember the whole process is that you have to produce this product of 4 helium and 2 proton, you have to have 4 protons. Diba? So you have to have 4 protons, 1, 2, 3, 4, to produce 4 helium ion, 4 helium nucleus and 2 protons. And then the process will repeat. So this series of nuclear reactions is the main source. Okay, this is the main source of your energy. Of course, there are other fusion reactions that happens to produce the other elements, yung mga heavier elements. So what happens there is that, but hindi siya ganon ka dami compared to this process. In fact, this process produces a net production of about 26.7 mega electron volts. And this is equivalent to the mass difference between the two protons and 4 protons and 1 He nuclei. Okay? So ito yung net. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually 5 and 6 pala. 6 protons pala ang kailangan to produce this. But the net is that the mass difference between kasi the mass of these 2 protons will just uh, cancel these 2 protons. So the net difference will be 4 protons and 1 He nuclei. Okay? It's about 0.029 atomic mass units. If we're going to convert this mass to energy, you will end up with this value, 26.73 mega electron volts. Okay? So this is generally what happens at the core. So this is what we call your hydrogen cycle. And this is the one that fuels the sun. This is the one that sustains life and drives most physical processes in the solar system. Okay? So any energy that we receive from the sun, most of it comes from this series of nuclear uh, reactions. Okay? So ganun, no? And then how this energy is transferred from the core to the surface of the sun, and that is what we're going to do, what we're going to discuss next now, the next slides. So in order to do that, we must assume several things. Okay? Number one, we have to assume that there is pressure balance inside the sun. So what does it mean? It means that the pressure that is generated inside the sun, that is directed going out, is actually balanced by the gravity. Okay? If this happens, the radial momentum, the momentum equation will approximate the hydrostatic equilibrium. So that means there's a steady state, there is a constant flow of energy coming from the center, coming from the core towards the surface of the sun, and that is being balanced by gravity. Okay, why? So that because if there's an imbalance, okay, kung puro outward ang nangyayari, then ubos agad yung energy coming from the sun. Ubos agad yung materia because this energy is being transferred out of the sun. No? Okay? So that's very important assumption. Okay? Also, the magnetic field inside the sun is actually insignificant. Okay, because the nuclear processes inside the sun, any magnetic field influences is actually canceled out with each other. Okay? So this also includes electric forces. No? So in short, yung electromagnetic influences inside the sun is actually very insignificant compared to the hydrostatic motion of this charged particles. No? Okay, but on the surface of the sun, the magnetic field, as we already discussed before, now plays a major role dun sa generation ng energy at the surface of the sun, or energy transfer at the surface of the sun. But inside the sun, magnetic field and electric field influences are actually neglected. Okay, so therefore, there are only two forces that will play a major role in terms of energy transfer, and those are your pressure gradient and your gravity, which is really related to our uh, magnetohydrodynamic equations that we discussed before. Okay, so in short, pressure gradients actually balances the gravitational force. So this is your single fluid momentum equation that we used before is now reduced to these two influences. Yung pressure gradient and your gravity. Because this is hydrostatic equilibrium, therefore any motion or any energy transfer will not involve any accelerating parameters. Okay, So if we're going to do this, if we're going to isolate all the forces in one side, that will be equal to 0. So what does it mean? It means that there's no acceleration. Okay, so the particles are not actually accelerated. Okay, so this pressure gradient balances your gravitational field or gravitational force. Okay, but this is your momentum equation. So this is actually force per volume equation. Okay, sige. Now, since pressure gradient is balanced by the gravitational force inside the sun, and we all know from our theoretical mechanics 1 that the gravitational field for a spherical mass distribution is actually given by this. Okay, this is negative gm over r squared r hat, where mr is your mass distribution, which is a function of your radial direction. So here we do not assume that the mass of the sun is actually constant, whereas in fact, the mass of the sun is actually varies uh, with respect to its distance from the center of the sun. Okay, which we're going to look at later. No, so we're going to plot, or I'm going to show you the plot of how mass density varies with distance from the center of the sun. Okay, and you will see that the core is actually more dense than the outer regions of the sun. Okay. Okay, take note here that G is your gravitational constant, your Newton's gravitational constant. That's 6.67 times 10 to the negative 11 cubic meters per kilogram second squared. Okay. Now again, so from this we can actually calculate, or from our theoretical mechanics class, that's the enclosed mass. If we're going to draw, for example, uh, if we're going to calculate a certain r here, if you're going to look at the surface, if this is your r, okay, the mass within this enclosed spherical, the mass enclosed by the mass enclosed by the spherical surface is actually given by this. Okay, so that's the integral of 4 pi r squared times the density, which varies with r, and then you integrate it. Okay, I'm sure you already remember that from your theoretical mechanics 1 class. Okay, so this is your enclosed mass. So using this equation, these three equations, okay, let me just rearrange those equations like this. Okay, so what happens now is that if you're going to substitute this, if you're going to remove the integral sign, so basically you're going to take the anti-integral, meaning what do you do if you take the anti-integral or inverse the integration? What do you actually do, Lance? If you want to inverse the operation of integration, what you actually do? You what? Lance?
Hello po.
Hello, Lance? Are you still with me?
Yes,
Oo. So anong gagawin kapag what do we do if we want to reverse the integration?
we integrate
We want to reverse the integration. So what do we do?
take the derivative.
Yeah, we take the derivative, no? So if you're going to take the derivative of this equation, you'll end up with this equation. Okay? So if you're going to take this is actually equivalent to this. This is in terms of your derivative, your differential equation. So this is your differential equation, assuming that rho is not constant with r. Okay? So rearranging this, we have an expression for your density. Okay, so your density is actually equal to 1 over 4 pi r squared divided times the derivative of your mass uh, with respect to the distance between the distance from the center of the sun. So substituting it here, it's a single fluid equation, and substituting this here, we end up, and then we can notice that m is actually a function of r. So this gradient operation in spherical coordinate system would look something like this, diba? Because everything is in radial direction, so there's no variation in the angular direction. So these terms are cancelled. So this will now become a total derivative with respect to r. And then substituting your expression for rho and g, you'll end up with this equation. Okay? So this actually tells us, if we're going to simplify this is now the differential equation that relates the variations of pressure as a function of distance from the center of the sun and how the mass varies with r as well. So this is your differential equation. And then from this, I'm going to skip the actual, I don't know, solution, but this will set up this differential equation will actually lead eventually to an estimate of how the mass and pressure varies inside the sun, which you can actually have a very good estimate, no? Okay, even without going through the center of the sun, or without actually going to the center of the sun. Of course, the solution to this will actually entail several boundary conditions, and those boundary conditions are actually found at the surface of the sun. Okay, in order to actually look for the actual solutions. Okay, so this term gives you the variations. Okay, this gives you the variations of mass as a function of r, and then this will give you the variations. This is your single fluid momentum equation that relates how mass varies with distance and how pressure varies with distance. Okay, now let's look at the pressure. How pressure varies with distance. So to do this, let's assume that the plasma inside the sun is in thermodynamic equilibrium. So what does it mean? It means that uh, energy exchanges or thermal exchanges between the plasma are actually very negligible. Okay, and using the ideal gas law, which is P equals NKT, where N is the number density, a number of particles, K is your Boltzmann constant, and T is your temperature at certain pressure at a certain position relative to the center of the sun. No? Because we know that inside the sun there are several particles. Okay, there are several particles. So this is actually this this N is actually some of the different species. So what are these species S? So recall when we discussed the generation of energy through nuclear fusion. So the production or the products that would end up after doing this reaction are the following. So you have your positron, you have your helium or alpha particles, and you have your protons. So that means this summation is actually composed of three components, approximately. Okay, because most of the particles, as mentioned before, are actually distinct. The trace particles, yung mga heavier elements, are actually negligible relative to the amount of this. No? So you have this one are your for your these are your for your electrons or positrons, This is for your protons. This is your alpha. This is for your alpha. These are your protons. Okay. Now, this is actually equal to the mass density divided by the mean molecular mass of a fully ionized plasma. Okay. So this is actually defined as this. We already mentioned this before. Sum of MSNS divided by NS. So since plasma is quasi-neutral, which already discussed before, okay, the number of electrons would equal to the positive ions, okay, which is approximately equal to Nt plus 2 N alpha. So this is the number density of your alpha particles times 2 because there are 2 protons inside an alpha particle, and then you have one alpha particle. Okay, so this is approximately equal to this. So for the ratio of N alpha with Np is actually about 0.8. So that's about 8% of alpha particles is uh, about 8%, no, of alpha particles, the ratio between the alpha particles to the number of protons inside the solar interior. So using this approximate value, mean molecular mass is about 0.6 times mass of a proton. So if we're going to use this value here, okay, given the density, variations of density, you can actually calculate the pressure variations. Of course, we all know that temperature also varies with time. Okay, so combining everything together, so you have your single fluid momentum equation, and you have your ideal gas law. So your pressure here is a function of density and temperature, which are both functions of your distance. Okay, so putting these variations here, so therefore this derivative will now have two terms. One using product rule, product slash chain rule. So we differentiate dp, we differentiate p with respect to p, with respect to uh, rho. So ito yun. And then we differentiate p, and then setting t as a constant, we have this one. So this is basically chain rule. Chain rule with product rule. And this is equal to your this one. This is your gravitational field. Okay, so this together with this. So remember this one. It's actually this one. Okay, these are actually set of differential equations that can be used to calculate how mass and density varies with distance, with this relative to the center of the sun. Okay, we're not going to do the differentiation, but the point is that the physics behind here is that we have a several assumptions, like you have the pressure balances the gravity, and you have thermal equilibrium as well as hydrostatic equilibrium. Okay, so if we're going to notice here that T also varies with temperature. Temperature also varies with R. So to complete everything, so we still need to find a differential equation to get the temperature variations. Kasi from these differential equations, from the two differential equations that you saw earlier, this one, and this one, can actually solve this term and this term. Okay, and from here we can, and then we can actually also come up with another differential equation to determine how temperature varies with position. Because remember kanina, di ba? When we look at the temperature, when we look at the schematic, the temperature at different points inside the sun's interior have different temperatures. So the question you might ask is, paano nalaman or how did we end up with those values? We end up with those values by using these equations. Okay? Because it's really impossible for us to really measure the interior of the sun. No? So all we can do is to if we could assume some physics about it and then do the necessary equations, then we can come up with these differential equations and come up with your estimate structure inside the surface of the sun. Okay, so in order to come up with the differential equation for the temperature variation, we can use the concept of energy transport inside the solar interior, because before these two equations are actually equations that are generated at based on the generation of the energy inside the Earth's core. Now, in order to know how temperature varies with radius or with distance, we can use the concept of this diffusion. In equilibrium, any outward energy flow rate, so that's a flow rate uh, as it is transferred from the source, from the core to the surface, is actually equal to the amount of energy generated. Okay, so the amount of energy generated is actually equal to the product of the surface area at certain distances r times the density times what we call your uh tawag doon, times the rate of nuclear energy production per unit mass. So mathematically, so ito yung area, this is the density, and this is what we call the rate of nuclear energy production per unit mass. This is uh this is also a function of distance. Okay, and this is equal to the outward energy flow rate. Okay, so solving this differential equation, the energy flow or radial energy flow through the surface of an inside of radius r is actually equal to this integration. Okay, so we're just going to integrate this term or this expression from 0 to r, from the center of the sun to the surface of the sun. So that since we already know we can actually observe the surface of the sun, so using any information coming that can be observed of the surface of the sun, we can actually input it here to come up with this LR. Okay, so L is the outward energy flow rate. Now, how do we use this? Okay, because most of the energy is produced inside the core, and approximately that's between 0 to zero point 0.3 or one third of towards the center of the sun. So this is about one third of the surface of the sun. Okay, so that means beyond that, the energy generation is very minimal. So we can actually assume that the energy flow rate is a constant. So for r greater for 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 positions outside the core, that's fairly constant. So we call that L of the sun, which is a constant. And we can actually calculate that at the surface of the sun. Okay, so right now we're not going to focus too much about the values here, but the actual uh, actual parameters, no, or actual the meaning of these equations. Okay, so most of this energy is generated at the core. So this energy flow is actually happening outside the core. So that's R at uh, outside the core or outside 0.3 of the radius of the sun. Okay, so this will be our limiting agent. So instead of 0 to R, we will use 0.3 R sun to the radius of the sun, which is R sun. Okay. So again, so this is the energy flow through the surface of an inside if the radius is r. Okay, so mainly, okay, majority of the energy transferred inside the sun takes place mainly by diffusion, and this diffusion actually happens uh, using through two mechanisms. First mechanism is through convection. This is happening at the convection zone, and using radiative transfer, which happens uh, at the radiation zone. So let's start with the radiation zone now. So at the radiation zone, the energy is transported by absorption and re-radiation of protons. Okay, so energy flux by definition is directly proportional to T to the fourth, which is actually equal to the energy flow transfer rate, L, divided by area. So equating the two, okay, we have this equation. So I'm not going to go to the details of the equations now. I mean, details of the math, but I'm just going to show you how this is usually done. Anyway, this radiation rates, energy transfer through radiation rates is equal to this one between the surface of the core up to the boundary of the radiation zone and the convection zone. Here, the KT is a multiplication factor depending on the optical properties of the solar interior. So we can actually model this. So from this proportionality sign, we convert it into with a proportionality constant equal to 1 over KT. Okay. So for regions outside the core of the sun, it is constant. So the thermal radiation differences, or the temperature differences as a function of R, or the rate at which temperature varies with R through radiation, is equal to this. Okay, so this is how temperature varies with R at the radiation zone. So here it's a function of this constant, it's a function of the temperature itself, and it's also a function of density. It's also a function of your L at the sun and the distance on the sun. So you will notice that relative to the R, this varies with square of the distance. Okay, so this is for the inner zone. So this is the inner zone for radiative transfer. So as mentioned before, that the energy transferred in the inside the sun mainly takes place by diffusion. So we earlier mentioned that um, the initial energy transfer is done by a radiation, and the temperature gradient in the radiation zone is already given by this equation. So KT rho m over T squared times L sun over 4 pi r squared. Now for the outer zone where convection happens, okay, here the dominant process is convective motion of macroscopic size cells. So what does it mean? It means that large parcels of plasma is actually moving up and down in a convection cell. Okay, so material come from the inside of the sun actually goes out of the surface, and then some of the material goes back inside through a convection process. Okay, since convection is the most dominant uh, uh, parameter, or most dominant uh, process here, this means that we can safely assume that any electromagnetic processes or influences can be neglected, or it's not as much as the influences of the convective motion. Okay, but the convective motion is actually slow. In other words, if we have a slow process, that means the type of process that we're going to consider is an adiabatic process. Okay, so therefore we can express the temperature gradient in terms of the adiabatic lapse rates given by this equation. This is equal to gamma minus 1 over gamma m bar over kg, where gamma is the ratio of specific heats for plasma. So remember that the gamma for plasma is 5/3. So if we're going to substitute 5 over 3 here in this equation, I actually end up with this equation. Okay, so this is negative 2/5 times m bar over k times g m over r squared. So we already know earlier that g mr. So from mr variation, we can actually determine the temperature gradient at the convection zone. Okay, so that's it. So if we're going to combine these two equations, we can actually complete the differential equations that would enable us to estimate the radial structure of the sun. Okay, so just a summary again. So inside the core of the sun, these are your equations. So this is how your mass varies with distance. So this is your mass gradient. This equation tells you the difference between how pressure gradient differs with distance. Sorry, this should be temperature. Sorry about that. It should be temperature. Okay, this should be temperature. Okay, so this is temperature gradient, which is given by the radiation zone equation and the convection zone radiation. Again, we're not going to deal with how to come up with the functions themselves. No? But the important thing is that these are bases. No? So in other words, these are based on actual physical assumptions that are based on physics. Okay, so these equations are actually come up with some very good physical assumptions. Okay, now which could give us this graph, no? So this is an example of the result of density variations with r, which is the distance from the center of the sun, and temperature. And you can actually see that relationship in your text for Gombozi. That's figure 11.3. So what I would like you to do is to explain as your homework how density, temperature, mass, and flow rate L varies with distance from the center of the sun, to the surface of the sun, where R over R square over R over RS is equal to 0. So that's figure 11.3, page 218 of the textbook Gombozi. Okay, so that will be your assignment for today's class. Anyway, for next meeting, what we're going to discuss is, I don't know, we're going to connect the convection that happens in the convection zone to the surface of the sun. So one evidence of convection actually is the observation of what we call the solar granules. So these are, if we're going to have a very powerful telescope, just like this Swedish 1 meter solar telescope, okay, that is mounted on Sweden, we can actually see some granular motions on the surface of the sun. So this is observed last May 25, 2017, observed by the Swedish telescope, solar telescope. This actually observed at the 395 angstrom 395 nanometer wavelength. So that's a UV wavelength near the spectral lines of calcium, hydrogen, and krypton emissions. Okay, so from this is actually coming from the spectral wavelength is near this wavelength is actually near the emissions of calcium, hydrogen, and krypton. Potassium, sorry. K is potassium. Okay, so if we're going to play this video, it would look like this. Okay, so you can actually see that the surface of the sun is actually boiling, which is a direct evidence that beneath that is that there is a convection zone beneath that surface. So imagine that you have you're boiling pasta, no? You're actually boiling pasta. So this boiling of motion is actually equivalent to this. Okay. This is actually if this convection current is actually strong enough, it can actually be more easily be seen if you're going to observe sunspots. Okay, so if you're going to look at sunspots, you can see that there is a convection motion, downward flow at this sunspot. You're going to notice here, no? So again, so you're going to notice that there is plasma going sinking into that sunspot. Okay. And this is one of the things that we're going to talk about next meeting, sunspots. No? How sunspots form, what are characteristics of sunspot, and how do we use sunspot to indicate solar activity. Okay, so so next, as I mentioned before, we're going to look at sunspots, and hopefully we're going to talk about solar atmosphere as well. So that's all for now. Thank you guys for